What's up, guys? It's Armando Marsal here at footballdiehards.com. This week I'm going to do things a little differently. I usually write an article of my targets for the week, but we've decided here to maybe do a video, see how you guys like it, see what you guys think. So any feedback is definitely appreciated. Over the course of the season, we were focusing on flex targets, but now that the postseason is here, I'm just giving you some guys I'm targeting and maybe putting in my player pool this week as we prepare for this 4-game slate over the weekend here. So let's jump right into it, guys. At running back, Marlon Mack at 5,800. Really good spot here for him against the Chiefs defense that was very generous to opposing running backs, allowing 4.9 yards per carry here, over 100 rushing yards per game, 14 rushing touchdowns. And it's just a good matchup here for him. We've seen his usage be very consistent over the end of the season here, with over 20 rush attempts in 3 of his last 4 games, including last week's wildcard games against the Texans. In those matchups, where he received over 20 touches, he also eclipsed 100 rushing yards, so very efficient here for Mack. And when you look at this game, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, so I think it's going to be close. So I don't think the game script will be, affecting him whatsoever here. Just overall, a good situation, a good price. And if this game does stay close like I expect it to, I do think he's going to see plenty of work this week. So at 5,800, I think makes for a fine play over at DraftKings there. The next guy I want to talk about here, James White, 4,900. GPP play only for me here, because there is some concerns about the volume and the workload that he might receive. That said, the Patriots don't have an issue leaning on him here in the postseason. We've seen in the years past where they go ahead and feel comfortable using White, and I think that's going to be the same situation over this week here. And when you look at the matchup against the Chargers, it's a really good one. Running backs were targeted 133 times against this defense, 4th most in the league. When you look at what they've surrendered, 107 receptions, 4th most, 973 receiving yards, most in the NFL, and 4 receiving touchdowns, which is tied for 3rd most against opposing running backs, this Chargers defense. And then when you look at his involvement in the passing game, White was peppered with 123 targets during the regular season. And although that production dipped towards the end of the year, he still saw at least 4 targets in each of his final 4 games of the season. Only seen fewer than 4 once this season, if I'm not mistaken here. So I think it's a good situation here for White. Vegas is projecting this to be pretty close with only a 4-point spread. So I don't think that the Patriots are going to be playing with a heavy lead where they don't rely too much on White. So I do expect him to be here on the field as their most trusted running back. Tom Brady trusts him. Bill Belichick trusts him. He knows the system. And this is a game that they need to win. Otherwise, their season is ending. So I expect him to be out there quite a bit. And when you look at this price tag, it's just the ceiling is through the roof. And he can easily pay this off by not doing much. So those are the running backs I'm targeting. Obviously, guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, and Alvin Kamara, all guys I'm going to have in my player pool. Of the bunch, I think Ezekiel Elliott's the top play, of course. Just a good situation there. And then Alvin Kamara will be my second option. I'm just concerned about Todd Gurley's health. And, I think he's going to be playing less than 100%. So I am concerned. Obviously, though, all 3 of those guys are certainly in play this week. But I just wanted to give you a couple running backs outside of the top 3 that I'm interested in. So let's jump right over to the receivers here. My top receiver here is Michael Thomas, 7,900. Listen, he draws a very good matchup here against the Eagles defense that gave up the 3rd most fantasy points per game, 3rd most receptions, 3rd most receiving yards to opposing wideouts here. So definitely a good situation. When you look at his one-on-one matchup against Rasul Douglas, it's a good one. 29% advantage rating for Thomas, which is the highest of any receiver on the slate here. We know how good he is at home. As a matter of fact, over 100, averaging over 100 receiving yards per game in New Orleans. Caught 6 of his 9 touchdowns in the dome there, and 59% of his receiving yards were here in New Orleans. So definitely a much better player at home than he is on the road. In their last meeting, he did catch all 4 of his targets for 92 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, the volume was high. It was a blowout. And although there is a potential blowout scenario here, as they opened up at 10-point favorites and now 8-point favorites, I just can't deny how good of a matchup this really is for Thomas. So I'm willing to take that risk. I think there's plenty of upside, a good ceiling. And I think when you look at, his price tag, considering, we're now in the postseason and have limited options as far as, limited player pool, I think that's a fair price tag. 7,900, I think it's very good. So he's someone that I'm considering, in all formats, really. I think he's fine in tournaments. I think he's fine in cash. Obviously, the only concern is if this game does get out of hand, his usage, and that would be my biggest concern. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. The Eagles have been playing some pretty good football, and they're a team that have been here before. So, and even if they get blown out, we did see Drew Brees throw it 30 times against this Eagles defense earlier this season in a game they won 48-7. So that's it for Thomas there. The next guy I want to talk about here is T.Y. Hilton. Very good matchup here against Charvarius Ward, who grades out well below average. Hilton has a 23% advantage rating in this matchup, which is third highest of all receivers. When you look at this defense as a whole, they allowed the fifth most receptions, fifth most receiving yards to opposing wideouts. This should be a very good game environment for Hilton, as it has the highest over-under on the slate, a pretty close spread. I'm expecting this to be a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised to see this game exceed the 57 over-under. Both of these offenses could put up points in a hurry. So Hilton is a high usage guy. We saw him get 10 targets last week. And even though he can be volatile at times, he offers a tremendous ceiling, especially for this price tag. 6,700, I think, is very reasonable considering the situation and the potential game environment here for him. So in my opinion, a very strong tournament play here. I don't fully trust him in cash. I don't think I'd go there, but definitely someone I want to sprinkle in my tournament lineups this weekend. And of course, guys like Tyreek Hill are in play. Amari Cooper is another one that's a pretty good play in my opinion. One of my favorite plays as well. So just to name a couple guys, I'm really not going to get in detail about that. I did talk about some of these guys on the podcast with Bobby Gomes, so you guys can make sure to check that out over on iTunes. It's the Chalk Talk podcast. And then we'll go over some of these plays over the weekend on Saturday morning when we do our Saturday morning show. Moving over to tight end here, obviously Travis Kelce is in a phenomenal spot. I think, if you're playing cash games, you definitely want to try to fit him in your lineups there. I like Eric Ebron as well. I think he's in a pretty good spot. But the guy I want to talk about here is Gerald Everett at 2,700. I think in tournaments, it's just such an intriguing play. Dallas does rank 19th in DVOA against tight ends. They allowed 86 receptions, which is sixth most, for 875 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. The 7 touchdowns are tied for fifth most in the league to opposing tight ends. Obviously, this is a high variance play because Everett is far from consistent, but it's good to know that he did receive at least 6 targets in 3 of his final 4 games this season. He did show that 2 touchdown upside in a single game. I believe it was week 11 against the Chiefs where he caught 2 touchdowns. So there is that kind of upside. And at 2,700, it really will allow you to fit in a lot of these high-priced guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Hilton, a lot of these high-priced players in good spots that you might want to roster. And it also gave you some unique lineup build and lineup construction because Everett's projected to be somewhat low-owned. Well, guys, that is it. These are guys I'm targeting this weekend. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to give me a follow on Twitter at Armando_Marsal. If you have any questions, feel free to go and reach out to me. I'll answer those. And I will be back with some more content later this week.